So that's just some basic stuff in R. Where R really shines is in working with the statistical analysis of data. So the the workhorse of R is the data frame. So let's do an example of that. Um, Data frame is basically a way that you can get data tables like the spreadsheets of stimulus information, for instance, or measurements of the stimulus into R and do things with it. So data frame example, let's work with this famous iris data set. This is a built-in data frame, which means that it already comes in in the R software, and I don't need to load it or tell it what it is or anything. So I can just type iris, and helpfully R is telling me that yes, this is this famous data set that gives measurements of sepal length, width, and petal length, etc., for different species of iris. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and if I hit enter, or sorry, if I run this by doing command enter, you'll see all this stuff running through the console. This is showing me the actual data frame. There's a couple things I can do here. If I want to see more information about um, something in R, I want to get help, I can put question mark and then that object, so in this case iris. So let's try that. I'm going to run it. And hey, look, in the help window, now I have this nice description of iris and examples. Yeah, and so that's the help window popping up. Um, Now back to what we saw in the console, it's a little bit annoying. You can see all these numbers just piled on by. Um, some very basic things I can do to peek at a data frame. I can say n row. This is a function, so it's going to take an argument. R helpfully, when I type a left parentheses, it um, closes it off so that I know it. Oh yeah, remember I have to close off this parentheses, and I will then type in an argument first. Let's figure out how many rows there are in this data frame. So n row in iris, and I'm going to command enter, and it tells me there's 150 rows. So that's no coincidence that we saw the console outputting up to 150 rows here. If I just want to look at the first few entries, I can say head iris, and you can see it's showing me the first 6 entries here. Similarly, I can do tail iris. That will show me the last 6 rows. So you can already see how is this organized. This looks a lot like a spreadsheet, doesn't it? It has a column for sepal length, a column for sepal width, petal length, petal width, and then a column where it specifies what species of iris it is. Um, so let's see. So we can also do some other neat things like we can return statistical summaries of each column in the data frame. So um, a nice command for this is called summary. So summary R is helpfully telling us that this is a function that will take an argument, some kind of object, and then there's also other arguments. But so let me type my open parentheses, and then I'll type in iris, command enter to run, and look at what's appearing in the console. We have, for each column, sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, and species, we have various statistics coming up. So it's telling us out of all the 150 entries, the minimum sepal length is 4.3. That's probably millimeters, centimeters? I'm not entirely sure. Probably, maybe it's centimeters, yeah. Don't worry about this other stuff, we'll go over it later, but mean, you should know, that's the average, right? So on average, the sepal length was 5.843, let's say, centimeters, and what was the max? The highest sepal length among the 150 entries was 7.9, and so forth. For the species, it's telling us there are 50 entries of each of 3 species listed here. So that's what summary does. If we want to find more out about this summary function, we can type question mark summary. I'm going to run it with command enter, and here we can see summary pops up in the help window, what it means here by base is just that this is a function that's part of R's base package. So remember where I showed you in this window, there's all these other packages, and each of those packages define different kinds of functions you can access. So this is just saying that summary is part of the base package in R. Alright, so one other thing I want to show you how to do with a data frame is we can also display the structure of a data frame using a command that's str, short for structure. Let's run it on Iris. And you can see it's telling us some things down here in the console. So it's calling it a data frame. That's the type of object it is. It tells us there's 150 observations of 5 variables. Remember, we have 5 because we have sepal length, width, length, or sorry, sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, and species. That's 5 variables. And it's telling us also each variable what type of variable it is. Num stands for numeric, so these are numbers, right? And then something quite interesting, and this is something pretty special for statistical analysis, is that species is called a factor type with 3 levels, which are the 3 different species. So that's a special type of variable in R that's used in code qualitative properties of data. So for instance, gender, male or female, or voice quality, vocal fry or normal voice. But not, that wouldn't be used, a factor wouldn't be used in code these continuous values of numbers you have like for the sepal length. Okay, so one other thing I should say is how do you then access the sepal length variable? This $sign is how you then get inside a data frame. So I could type iris $. Oh, and R helpfully has these options pop up. I could click on that. And then that's how I then access just the variable sepal length. If I do, if I run this with Command Enter, you'll see it returns all the values, the 150 values of the sepal length from that data frame in order. Finally, just some quick, just for fun, showing you some sample plotting. Let's do some sample plotting here. So basic plot command is just plot, and let's access the sepal length and plot that on the x. So you can see I'm putting in the x argument is iris sepal length, and then let's do sepal width on the y-axis. Now I'm going to run this with Command Enter, and hey, look, our plot window has popped up iris sepal length on the x-axis plotted against iris sepal width on the y-axis. This is called a scatter plot, by the way, and each xy coordinate is indicated by a point. So there should be 150 points there. So yay, it's our first plot. We can also do a question mark plot and look at the help window and see some things like, oh, hey, look, we can change the type of plot. So P for points, L for lines, B for both. So for instance, I could go back, copy that, and paste it, and let's add an argument. So let's specify type. So I'm going to say I'm going to now specify what type is, and oops, sorry about that. Let's say that type equals L. So L for lines, like we have L for lines here. So let's run that. And whoa, okay, yes, it's lines. This is a not very informative plot, but you can see that we can change the plot type to lines. And let's see, so finally, let's try plotting for iris species on the x-axis. So remember, there's 3 species. And then how about petal width as the y-axis, or the y variable? If we plot that, then look, this is called a box plot. We'll discuss this later, but what you can see is you can compare the petal width across species here. And this is a summary of that. Um, One thing missing is we don't have any axis labels or titles. If we go back to help on plot, you can see there's some other arguments we can do here to set titles. Main for the title, xlab for title for x-axis, ylab a title for the y-axis. So let's try that. So I'm going to copy this and paste it and add in some more. Um, so one thing I should mention is I could be very specific and indicate that I'm setting the x argument here and the y argument here. That's one way to set argument to pass in arguments into functions in R. It also will just know by order, so x and y, x is the first argument it expects, y is the second argument it expects. That's why this function call also works. But here, just to be very clear, I want to specify by name. I'm going to specify the main argument, and let's call that, what was it, petal width? Yes, petal width for iris species. That will be our plot title. Let's add an x label, so xlab equals species, and then ylab equals sepal length in, let's say, or no, sorry, petal width, and maybe that's in centimeters. So, okay, so let's close off that, and oops, got a little long there, and you can see I had an error appear in the console, unexpected closing. Oops, look, see, I accidentally had two parentheses because RStudio had already helpfully had a closed parentheses for me already. Now we're okay. Now I'm going to do Command Enter, and we have a nicely labeled plot now.